What's going on, people? Now, before we get into the video, people have been asking me why they can't watch my 20-minute video on a console with Nicky Barnes, Guy Fisher, and them. You have to go on my YouTube channel on the browser and click the join button to become an upper echelon member. And you know the video is 20 minutes, but no ads, no news clips added to the video, just 20 minutes of storytelling and information. Plus, it's other exclusive videos on there, so make sure y'all tune in. Now, before Alpo and Rich Porter and all those young hustlers in New York got into the game, Preacher was in the streets planting his flag. By the time all the youngins was touching real paper, Preacher was already considered an old-timer, a well-seasoned vet. Now, we've all heard stories about Preacher during the paid-in-full era, the mid and late 80s and early 90s. But what about Preacher in his early days? Who was he before everyone called him Preacher? Now, most of us know how he got the name Preacher. He had his way with words, and he could talk almost anyone into doing anything for him. Someone once said he could have been a very successful salesperson. He could have represented himself in a courtroom. He didn't need a lawyer. Now, that's very impressive for someone with only a third-grade education. Now, one of his things was coming off super polite. He would literally kill you with kindness. That was his way of getting you relaxed, rocking you to sleep. That caused lots of people to become unprepared. Before you knew it, you was prey. In the early 70s, he would be very active in the streets. He would be in and out of jail for robberies, gun possessions. He was tall and he could fight very well. He had big gorilla hands that you didn't want him to pit on you. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but he actually knew martial arts. He started to become more known in them jails. I mean, his rap sheet speak for itself. January of 1971, he was convicted of possession of a loaded firearm, and he was sentenced to 3 months in prison. He would end up getting released early, and he would get home, and of course he needed a quick way to get some money. On March of 1971, he was convicted of robbery, so once again he would head back to prison, only this time he would receive a sentence of 1 year imprisonment. He would complete the year, he would come home, he would be on the streets for a couple of months. June of 1972, he was convicted of harassment, and he received a sentence of 10 days in prison. October of 1972, he was convicted of robbery and possession of a dangerous weapon, and he received a term of 2 to 9 years in prison. He will only sit for about 3 months, and that's where the corroboration was starting. So he became an informant way before the 90s, corroborating against his OGs. February of 1973, he was convicted of another robbery, and he received a sentence of 9 years imprisonment. He will only do 2.5 years before being released back onto the streets. November of 1976, he was convicted of, now at this point, y'all should already know, he will be convicted of another robbery, receiving a sentence of 6 to 12 years imprisonment. Now, he will be set for yet another early release. Now, you can only imagine the type of information he was giving up to be able to have all these early releases. Now, he knew he was playing a dirty game, and he played to win. Now, we've all heard the rumors about the kinky stuff he was getting into behind bars. Well, it's kind of hard to call it a rumor because it's on public FBI record. But he was never charged in any of it, or the charges were probably secretly dropped. Now, with Preacher being back on the streets, he tells himself he won't be going back to jail anytime soon, so he would take a different approach. Going into the mid-80s, he noticed new faces and young hustlers entering the game, and he would take advantage. He would use the younger men to do things for him and pretty much get them to honor his OG call. Learning from his past mistakes, he would move more careful, more private. He would barely come out. He would use people that he would call his janitors to clean up his mess and take on his dirty work. Now, I know there's a lot of people that might not like hearing this, but the question that's been going on for years is, was Rich Porter paying Preacher? Absolutely. Preacher did a lot of favors for Rich. All of Rich's workers and friends could do all the interviews they want, but they know. They just don't want to come off as haters or mess up his image. But everybody was paying somebody, whether you look at it as extortion or not. Now, you know what AZ meant when he said everybody eats. He didn't want no smoke. They were young. They wanted to enjoy their money, chase women, party, drive around in nice cars. So if you had to pay someone a little bit of money that you was going to throw up in the air anyway, then so be it, because the headache is not worth it. You had bosses like Frank Lucas, Nicky Barnes, Frank Matthews, even mafia bosses had to pay someone, whether it's cops or people that was there before them. It's called peace of mind. Go watch American Gangster. It's a business. It's a monopoly. You can land on someone's territory, but you have to pay. If you didn't pay, you was going to war. And going to war could cost you way more money and freedom than just paying someone. There's a lot of people sitting in jail for life right now because they wasn't going to pay. There's a lot of guys that couldn't even enjoy their money that they was making because they couldn't even go anywhere. Like, who wants to live like that? You had a couple of guys that tried to duck Preacher. Rich was one of them. Preacher would show up to the trap house. He knew where all the trap spots were, so he would come to the money. You will see the black Benz parked out front, and Preacher would be out there with Jack and another guy. He would be dressed in an all-black suit. Preacher was old school. Yeah, he caused Rich and other hustlers to shut down their trap spots. And you could never run because way before y'all had problems, he would watch and follow you without you even knowing. So yes, Rich Porter was paying, and that doesn't mean he was a chump. It was just business. And I know some of y'all are some die-hard Rich Porter and Alpo fans, and y'all fell in love with the characters on Paid in Full. So I don't want no smoke. So, man, y'all be safe out there. Have a good weekend. Make sure y'all take care of the mothers on Sunday, too. I'm out.